Hello, Voice Focus. Some pretty big news last night as Reds defender Felipe put a statement out on Instagram confirming he'll leave the club at the end of the season and it looks pretty certain he'll retire. We'll discuss that news, what it means, and a few other snippets around the latest Nottingham Forest news in the company of Reds legend Gary Birtles. Gary, good morning. Are you well?
Good morning. Yes, apart from the weather, will it ever stop this rain?
I know my garden. I said this yesterday. Is basically flooded. Yeah, it's pretty
Well,
miserable.
and in the summer, you can guarantee it.
Yeah. True. Right, let's talk. We're going to talk Felipe, what it means for Forest, a little bit on the centre half situation, a small snippet of Paul Tierney, but we won't dwell on that too much because it's been done to death, and a little bit on Brighton, and I'll get Gary's take on potentially leaving the City ground. So drop your comments in as well, and we'll maybe take a few quick comments and questions as we go along. So Felipe last night put a statement out, Gary, saying that he'll leave Forest, and it pretty much said without confirming that he'll retire at the end of the season. I guess there's a few similarities between him and you. He didn't turn pro until he was about 19, and he was delivering mushrooms to restaurants before that. So he didn't have the typical upbringing as a footballer.
I was doing carpets to building sites and tiles to building sites.
Exactly. And I think he's basically retiring through injury. He's had this chronic knee problem for a while. So he could have eked out a year in Saudi Arabia, but do you kind of respect the situation that, time's catching up with him by the sound of it?
Look, your body tells you when to pack it in. I packed in at 36. I was lucky to carry on that long. But all of a sudden, you just shut down a little bit and always listen to your body. And he's had problems. What's the point in putting your body through it at that age if it's going to make things worse? I mean, I thought I got away with, sort of bad knees and ankles and everything. But my right knee has, over the past year has flared up a little bit, arthritis. So I know exactly, how he's feeling. I had the spinal fusion in 1984, and my spine's still wide up. It takes its toll on your body. And what's the point in carrying on? He's had a terrific career. He did a great job for us, keeping us up last season. The fans love him. But, you've got to respect his decision.
Just a few quick good mornings to people. Damon, Davey, Greg Oram, Chris Paget, Dave. No, I always said Davey. Richard Ottaway and Jackie Howarth. Good to have anyone who's with us as well. And then there's a person in New South Wales as well, which is great. International audience. What do you think it means for Forest? Because he's not really played much this season, and when he plays, he's either been pretty good or not so good. What's the impact on the club for the rest of the season, do you think?
Well, you always want your best players available, especially the predicament we're in at the moment. We just don't know what's going to happen. Everything's up in the air. Despite what we might get punished with the points, if we don't start winning games and Luton do, then we go into the bottom three and could get relegated without the points deductions, which is what you don't want. You want as many fit players going through this period towards Easter and beyond as you possibly can. We've got Willy Bolly, obviously. He's to come back in, but key players in key areas, if you lose them, it's going to be difficult. And centre halves and strikers are the ones for me that are the key areas, because you look what happened when we lost the two on the same game last season.
Yeah.
Was it the West Ham game?
Fulham
game, was it? Yeah, when we lost both of them within 7 minutes, and it can have a massive impact, and things like that can happen. So you just try and hopefully keep everybody fit. And, there's some games coming up that are winnable. And, we want everybody available, for those coming games.
Do you think the answer to this question, I think, changes from week to week with the centre halves, but what's our best pairing for you? Or is that decided by the opponents?
It can be decided by the opponents, but I'm always of the opinion that, you play your best two in your own mind. Bolly and Murillo were, they look good together. The thing is, if we do go down, what happens to Murillo? He's not going to stay, is he? All these things come into the equation a little bit. But that's down to Nuno. He's got to pick what he sees in his mind as his best 11. And, and what system we're going to play. Looks pretty settled at the moment. We've got players back fit. We've got a good squad to choose from at the moment. One-Ye's a little bit of a worry because he's in pain quite a lot at the moment, and he goes off, then he comes back and plays. all these little nuances come into the rest of the season. So it's about keeping players fit and having the best possible squad you can pick from. And yeah, I'm sure he'll do that without a doubt.
You're worried about Awoniyi then, because he's making impacts, but he doesn't look right, I think.
Yeah, you hear things that he's permanently in pain and things like that. And if that's the case, then it just takes one little tweak of the hamstring or anything like that. Because when you've got those little niggles in as a player in the back of your mind, you can pull out of things. I'm not saying he does, because he's not that sort of player, but you can pull up a little bit, and that makes things a little bit worse. Because it's in your back of your mind that things could go wrong, and that's what you don't want that as a player when you go on a pitch. You want to be on that pitch 100% clear in your mind about what you're doing out there. You don't want to think, well, oh, is my hamstring going to go? Or, is my knee going to go? And if it goes, you get injured. It happens. We see it all the time. But you, as a player, believe me, you don't want to go out there with that in your mindset that something could go wrong because you're not feeling 100%.
I think some good news is that Chris Wood's close to coming back, and Origi does seem to have found something. I mean, what's your take on Origi the last couple of games now that you've seen him?
Well, I think the problem always has been with strikers. They need games. They need continuous games. They need a run of at least half a dozen. And if you're a bit part player, which he's been, Hudson-Odoi has been a little bit like that as well. It's difficult to perform on a regular basis and get that consistency going, because you need game time. As a striker, more so than I think than anybody else on the pitch. And it's then things don't go quite right, and people start moaning a little bit because they're not doing the right things as you think they should do. But it's not always easy. You can't just come in and play one game. You probably play one game and you can probably be terrific for 60 minutes, and then you'll have a couple of moments where you're not. You just need, as a striker, to have continuity, and it's difficult if you don't get that. And those two haven't had that really as yet.
As Greg Oram says as well, he did return ahead of schedule, which I was surprised at. I thought he'd be back a bit later than he was. And Mikey's in the chat as well. Morning, Mikey. Going back to the centre halves then, excuse me. I mean, I don't think it changes much with Felipe. He seems a wholehearted player, so I don't think that's an issue, and he's still a dressing room leader. Do you think? I suppose we hope Murillo and Deli kind of emerge as the long-term pairing, because they're both young and they both have high values, frankly, if we do ever sell them. Do you think that could work? Because Deli, I thought he played really well at the weekend. What's your view?
Again, he's another player who's not really had an opportunity to prove what he can do, on a regular basis. So, it's a really difficult one because of the position we find ourselves in the league, fourth from bottom, the points deduction hanging over us. Do you go for experience, or do you go with the two players you think are going to be the two centre halves moving forward over the next couple of years or whatever? If we do stay in the Premier League, it's a really difficult situation to be in for the manager, I think, because Bolly will be there. His experience, I think, could be vital as well. We've lost McKenna, obviously Joe Worrell's as well, so. The options are going down a little bit, and if you do get those injuries, then you could be in big trouble going towards what could be a very hectic end to the season.
This shows a little different to normal. It's only me and Gary here, so if people want to drop in the comments what their preferred pairing is, then I'll put a few up on the screen. I assume it's all Murillo and AN other as we go along. Right, let's just take a moment to thank our sponsors, and then we'll move on to a couple of other bits. Obviously, it's the Trent Navigation, and coming up, they have got boxing fans can catch Knockout Chaos, it's called. The Trent Navigation Big Shed this Friday as Anthony Joshua takes on Francis Ngannou. So do check that out, and obviously we are very grateful for their support. It's the big heavyweight pay-per-view showdown in Saudi Arabia. Right, let's just see if people are going to drop those combinations in as we go. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about Paul Tierney, because he's been taken off refereeing duty on the pitch, and he's got the very hefty punishment of being the VAR sat in the comfort of Stockley Park doing the Arsenal-Brentford game. What was your take on what happened on Saturday? I'll get that, and then also we'll talk about what happens to refs when they screw up. But what was your view on what happened on Saturday, first of all?
Totally embarrassing from a referee who not to know the basics of what he's doing. Is just staggering. And why nobody was in his ear saying, you've got to give the ball back to Forest. They were in possession. You've got to do this. I know VAR can't get involved, but somebody surely in his ear can say, you've got to give that ball back to Forest. I mean, nobody's hearing that, but, you just say it. The fourth official, just say it. Not rocket science. I watched my grandson play down at Attenborough at the weekend. He's 12. And they had a young lad refereeing in a similar situation that happened, and he gave the ball back to the right team. Even he knew what he was doing on a park game on a Sunday morning. So if he can do it, a young lad, why can't Paul Tierney do it? And it could have cost us. It wasn't direct, but it was. We could have got a corner. We could have put more pressure on. We could have nicked a goal. But in doing what he did, and nobody telling him in his ear, if he's got nothing in his ear telling him, fine. But he has. So why not just say, come on, you're giving it to the wrong people here. Forest were in possession, give it to Forest. I mean, what is going on there? It was just infuriating. And again, it's another decision that's gone against Forest. We were talking about Wolves early in the season. They were having decisions go against them. But the number of decisions that are going against us or have gone against us this season is just staggering. And you listen to the pundits saying disgraceful. And it is disgraceful. And I lost my rag, because it's something that could cost you. That point would have been fabulous because we deserved that point on Saturday. They weren't brilliant, but we didn't make them brilliant. As an opposition, you have to stop the best teams being good. I mean, you look at the game last night, 6-0, Arsenal. We played against Arsenal. We didn't look, as bad as, Sheffield United did last night. But when decisions keep going against you, and it beggars belief at times because it was a difficult decision, to make, to give us the ball back because Hudson-Odoi had got the ball, and it was a collective thing. It was VAR could have said something in his ear. The fourth official could have said something, but nobody did.
We'll come back to that. Are Sheffield United the worst Premier League team you've ever seen? Just out of curiosity.
Well, some will say Derby maybe, where the point.
Yeah, they got fewer points, but yeah.
I watched the whole game more or less. I watched the second half more than I watched the first half. I missed the start of the game, and second half they did. The closing down, they did a lot better. I thought. They stopped Arsenal. Just totally taking over and dominating. I thought it could have been double figures. Maybe Arsenal eased off a little bit. They rested players, they took players off because they've got a hectic schedule coming up. But I think Chris Wilder, was very honest in what he said about maybe the senior players aren't doing what they should do, the basics right. We always talk about that, the basics as ex-pros as pros, and they're not. He's on about playing the young kids in the next game. And I'm actually doing Bournemouth Sheffield United on Saturday, so I'll see what the outcome of that is. But it's refreshing to hear somebody saying, "Well, we weren't doing the basics. We should be doing the basics," and I might play the kids.
Yeah, poor old Ben Osborne getting put on after 15 minutes to Mark Saka, and he struggled obviously, but I'm sure they all would. What do you think about this principle of a ref screws up as Tierney did? And he goes and he's a VAR at the weekend. I mean, I'm not particularly for public shaming, but should you say actually you either don't get a game, you go referee a League Two game? What do you think should happen?
Well, I think maybe go and do a League Two game or something like that, but don't include him in the VAR because what happens now if he makes drops a clanger at the VAR? He's going to get slaughtered. Take the pressure off him a little bit, and let him go and do a League One, League Two game or whatever. It's like when I was carpet fitting, if I'd have made a mistake, cut it short, and then they gave me another one to do at I did it again, cut it short again, I'd be getting the sack. It just doesn't make any sense. I think you've got to accept when you've dropped a clanger, and apparently He didn't let anybody in to see him, to have a chat with him about what what his decision was about and how it cost us in that circumstances. And you're supposed to do that. And I'm trying to think. Somebody said the arrogance of referees at the moment is it's just staggering at times. You have to play by the rules, and it seems it's rules for some and rules for others.
Yeah, because that is the convention. You'll speak to the manager, certainly. But this is a curious question: is refereeing that bad compared to historically? I mean, I think it's much worse than last season around VAR. Obviously, you've been in and around the game for a long time. Has refereeing got significantly worse, do you think, or not?
Without a doubt. And that's not just because I'm saying, oh, in my day it was better. The referees, you talk to them, they gave you as good as you were giving them, and they made their own decisions. I think the problem with refereeing now, referees just think the VAR will help them out. They don't have to make the big decisions and just leave it to the VAR. But VAR are getting it wrong so many times that something's got to change. They've got to say to referees, you've got to be more responsible. We had the best referees, I think, before VAR came in world football. I don't think we have now because of what's happened. I think everybody's frightened of VAR a little bit within the system because it's unfit for purpose at times, and it's going to put pressure on referees. It's going to put pressure on assistant referees. Something's got to change. During the summer, if nothing changes, then it's shambolic, because it clearly needs a massive shake-up. And if they don't shake it up, there's the arrogance again. It's, oh, well, we're not getting it wrong. We'll carry on doing what we're doing. And that is just unacceptable for what we've seen on a general basis this season.
Yeah, I mean, one of the gripes I've raised with VAR, especially this season, it feels like it's there to back up a referee's decision more than correct an error. It just seems like they don't overturn anything now. And they don't... I think I've only ever seen one instance where a ref's been said, go to the monitor, and they've said, actually, I'm going to back my decision as well. And I think that was Michael Oliver in the Bournemouth game where we lost. But I think he's stuck with his on-field decision. And he's one of the few refs that I actually think are decent, and I would be happy to see
he was
free,
but I think even he's been affected by what's going on with VAR.
I think so. And I think he gets just put in the big games all the time. We tend to not, unless it's generally, if it's Liverpool v Man City, it's going to be him that gets it. What do you think about Brighton?
Yeah, just say, they got a battering by Fulham. Last season we did well against them. We got a 0-0 down there and beat them up here. So, it's a good time maybe to play them. They've slipped up a little bit, and we've just got to go with a positive attitude and think that and be proactive.
Let's see if there was a couple of questions that came in as well. There was one around. Okay. Do you think we've got the mental fighting spirit to stay up? I think our squad's mid-table on paper, but Luton have got more fight than us. What do you think about that notion?
Well, I think everybody's seen what Luton are about. They just give everything they possibly can. And that's a given. That's basic of football. If you're a professional footballer at the highest level or any level, you give everything you've got. And Luton, it's not about individuals. It's about, a team ethic. And you've got to give their manager great credit. I think we can get it further up the table with the games coming up, without a doubt. We've proved against the better teams that we're not that far off. The cup game against Man United, the odd goal against Liverpool. We've not been really battered by anybody. So the possibilities are there. It's just the final third. I mean, the chances we had against Liverpool at the weekend, where we just didn't hit the target. We're trying to be maybe too precise, too clever. The one that Elanga put wide, it's probably easier to hit the target than what he did. He just missed altogether. If the keeper saves it, brilliant. But, test the keeper. He might parry it, and one you might have a tap in, or somebody might have a tap in. It's not as if we're not creating stuff. We are. I mean, the Nunes goal, the head, it was just a ball into the box. Yeah, it was an okay ball, but again, we didn't deal with it. And you can say what you like about the decision Tierney made. We gave the ball away coming out again. How many times have we done that this season? giving away goals in stupid areas. It was so annoying to see that happening. We're 0-0, yes, the break was on, but don't just give it away so simply and allow quality players that Liverpool have to do what they did to us. You respect your opposition. At that time of the 98th minute, you'd have taken 0-0 then. Don't try and be clever. And I think that was the annoying thing for me as well, that it was another, what we've always said in the last few seasons, avoidable goal. Really was. And it's cost us again.
Question from Richard Ottaway. What do you think of 3 at the back? We've discussed this a few times. Murillo can roam, Bolly, and it's Murillo Deli, who you can't spell, Richard. What do you think about that as a 3? Or even Felipe could come into the mix?
Yeah, it's worked, and it gives us freedom down both flanks. I think it takes a little bit of pressure off Gibbs White to be the main creative element in there. It gives you more options. You can pick and choose against your opposition. I think with the 3 at the back, but it is we saw last season it was proactive for us, keeping us up in the Premier League, and it can work. And you've got to look at every possibility you've got in front of you as a coach, and pick what you think is the best formation on any given day. I mean, we've not been that bad with how we've been playing at the moment. It's not been catastrophic. It's just the silly mistakes we keep making, and not defending from the set pieces well enough. It's just little bits and bobs like that will cost you at that level. If it was in the Championship, you might get away with it, but in the Premier League, you just don't. If you give the opposition of quality those sort of opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, our defensive numbers, I know they don't tell the whole story, but our defensive and goalkeeping numbers, so that, frankly, if we had a decent goalkeeper, a mid-table goalkeeper all season, we'd be a mid-table team. And that's another factor as well, sadly. Last shout for questions then. If you've got any more, drop them in. Feel free, and I'll put a couple more to Gary. The other thing I was going to ask you about, Gary, is around the potential of leaving the City ground. It was raised last week in an interview that Tom Cartledge did with the BBC. We've all been down there, but not all of us have played there, and we'll have the memories that you have of it. Would you be dead against leaving if it meant the potential that the club could build? Or equally, like Greg Mitchell and Pete Blackburn were on last week, they were saying we can't leave, the City ground means everything. What's your take on it?
Well, you hear the announcement. The today's crowd at the world famous City ground was, or is, it has got that history, and it only holds the 30,000. We still don't know what's happening with the main stand, whether that's going to be done or not. It is in an iconic position, right next to Trent Bridge Cricket Ground, Notts County, across the river. It's an iconic trilogy there. And if you get relegated and you build a bigger stadium, then what happens then? I would, at the moment, definitely stick with the City ground, because there's been a little bit of upheaval. Obviously, Steve Cooper departing and Nuno coming in. We don't know what's happening with the points situation. We don't know if we're going to stay up. There's no point in building a new stadium if people aren't going to fill it. I've no doubt. I think that people would fill it, because the Forest supporters are unbelievable. They really are. It's an emotive one. If it was for the good of the football club, then you've got to say okay. But if it's just being done, these new modern stadiums, they look cold. They look it's just, there's no atmosphere properly, like the Old Traffords, the Anfields. Everton are the ones who have taken the bull by the horns and moved. They're going to a new stadium, so it'd be interesting to see how that goes. But Arsenal did it. Highbury was iconic, but that changed, and the Emirates, Man City did it. Main Road was an iconic stadium. So teams have done it. It's worked, but it's always a little bit not disappointing, but a little bit the history is going to disappear with it. But that's the way of the world. It really is.
Yeah, I think that's a good point about Everton, because they're kind of a comparable sized club. If they build an all singing, all dancing stadium, it might sway a couple, because I don't think we'll ever get a Spurs stadium, and we certainly don't want a Leicester, Derby, Reading, Southampton type stadium. I hope we've moved on from that. Quick one here from Rafiq. Do you think having a retiring player in the squad will lift the level to make sure they give him a quality last season? Will Forest players be more motivated to give Felipe a good send-off? I kind of hope not, personally. I think they should just want to win every game, shouldn't they?
No, I would say it's all about your individual, doing what you do and then doing it within the team structure. Players retire every season. It's part and parcel of what's going on. Cricket's the same, golf's the same. You hate to see the tennis. Hate to see the great players. Looks like Andy Murray could be retiring, and it's always disappointing when the greats do that. But that's the way. It's the way of the world. You can do nothing about it. When your body tells you it's had enough, then you've got to say, right, yeah, I've had a great time. I've had a really good career. I've managed to get into my mid-30s, and just say, yeah, thanks very much, and then go and enjoy yourself.
Good question here from Greg. Or we discussed this yesterday with Lewis about your mate Billy Davis and how he would have reacted to this. But do you think the recent refereeing decisions will galvanise the players? And was Brian Clough ever one for us against the world type strategy?
He never let us talk to referees or give referees stick. He used to get the referee in the dressing room beforehand, and used to say, "If any of this lot give you any trouble, just let me know." And we knew not to, sort of do that. But it was as against the world. We were underdogs at that particular point. You were playing against the great Liverpool side, and all the teams in that particular time. We were the minnows, if you like. So that's what made it more incredible. What Brian Clough achieved with us all.
What about how these group will react? Do you think it will galvanise them, or can we not know?
About him in maybe for professional sport now. I don't know. We played it. We didn't play for money or anything like that. We played because we wanted to win things, and money does come into it nowadays. It's bound to. There's a lot of it out there, and I just hope all professional footballers realise how lucky they are and how privileged they are, and that they want to do the best they possibly can for themselves, their teammates, and the supporters, because that's what it's all about. If you're playing for any other reason, then what's the point? It's great to have all that money as well, but enjoy what you're doing while you can earn money and really enjoy it and have a great career. You see some players, just disappear into oblivion, that you thought were going to be, terrific players. I mean, what's up to Deli Ali? He looked a great talent at one point. You feel really sorry, but players like that who had fantastic potential, you don't hear a great deal about them anymore. Jesse Lingard was another one, who played for England, did well at Man United for a while, did well at West Ham, and it's all about you as an individual. I think agents can play a massive part in a player's career. They can push them in the right direction, but they can also push them in the wrong direction. You've got to be strong mentally as an individual and say, well, hold on a minute, this is what I want to do. But I'm not sure that happens. I've got no insight into, what goes on with agents and players anymore. All we can judge it on is what we see on a Saturday afternoon, on the pitch, and, the attitude the players give. And as long as I'm sat there for 90 minutes and I watch everybody on that pitch give everything they possibly got, even if they have a bad game. I had plenty of those at Man United, but I gave everything I possibly could in every game. And I think that's why the United fans didn't really, slaughter me or anything like that, because they could see I was trying everything I possibly could, physically, mentally, to try and get it right. And if players do that, fans aren't daft. They can see that. They can see that players are trying desperately to do the right things.
There was a question earlier, I think it was from Gregory, about should we mic up a referee? They do. They've done it. I've seen it in the Aussie A-League. They do it in rugby, obviously. I think they do it in the NFL, maybe. Could we do that in Premier League football, or would they be beeping and filtering out too much bad language?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they've got the earpiece in anyway, haven't they? So they've got contact, whatever. Do we need that? I'm not sure. Does it work in other sports? Perhaps it does. And we can take a lead from other sports. Anything to make what's going on at the moment better, because at the moment it's getting embarrassing. It's embarrassingly bad. The standards we're seeing at the moment on a regular basis. It's not just the odd bad judgment or bad call or bad decision, it's on, it's happening every week. We're talking more about, the bad decisions than we are about performances. And that's got to stop. And if they don't do something this summer, the referees and the the organisations that run the referees, then it'll be shambolic. Again, it will show an arrogance that is just not acceptable. I've told you this before. When we first did the course down at Stockley Park, I said to Neil Swarbrick, "You need ex-players helping the referees in there. You've got the right balance." But how many years are we down the line? How many years have VAR been going on now?
4. I'm not sure,
yeah,
actually.
Still, the same mistakes are being made, and still, you listen to ex-players and players. They say, we would be great in a studio with a referee because we played the game and we know the little nuances and that players can do, and the antics they can try and get away with, and it just makes perfect sense. It's a no-brainer for me. But will we see it in the summer? Will we see it next season? Don't hold your breath.
Probably not. Right. I think we shall leave it there. A bit of a mixed up show today, so appreciate people's company and patience. Any final words before we go, Gary?
No, not a great deal. I think this points deduction thing is hanging over everybody at the moment. Why can't they just come out with it? They know what they're going to say by the look of it in April. Why can't they come out and do it now so we all know? Why have Man City got 115 charges, and they know when that's going to happen, but they won't tell us? For goodness sake, clarify things. Let's all hear what's going on. What the speculation about how many points is just depressing. It's annoying. Let's just do it. Get it out in the open, and then everybody knows where they stand. But at the moment, it's just hovering over everybody.
Yeah, our hearing is coming up, and then we get our results in April, and then we might appeal, and then it might be past the end of the season before it's resolved, which is a crazy situation.
Yeah, you obviously then you might get if you stay up, you might get a point deduction for the following season, but at least you know where you stand.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think we'll get our points deduction this season. But it was interesting. Did you see?
And the appeal won't happen then until next season. So
no, it'll happen this season.
Oh well, somebody was saying, I was told that if we get the points deduction, it won't be held. It won't affect us till next season. So there's all sorts of different rumours flying around. You ask somebody one thing and you get a different answer.
I think it'll be resolved this season. Did you see about Leicester and Villa announcing their losses? I mean,
Villa this morning, but I didn't see Leicester's.
Leicester have lost loads of money. I mean, the state of FFP, it feels like it needs completely revamping, really, because it's so hard for clubs. Right, we shall leave it there, and we shall be back tomorrow with something. It's a bit hickledy-pickledy. My lad's got a sickness bug, so it's a bit all over the place this week. Normal service will resume next week, but we'll have a match preview as well, obviously, in a post-match stream. So thanks for people's patience in general this week. It's very much appreciated. And Gary, thank you for joining me at short notice. I'll let you go and walk the dog now.
Pleasure.
You're a good man. Right, have a good day, everyone. Hopefully catch you tomorrow. But in the meantime, as I say, we shall see you soon.